And the mother of all acquisitions, purchase of ING private banking, how did that come about?
Well, as the crisis played out, like most institutions, we were somewhat cautious, in particular with our lending practices. But we had a conscious, scanning of the marketplace, looking for assets, looking for opportunities, because we still had excess capital, and we felt that the crisis should, throw up something. Then I guess was mid-quarter last year that the ING, private bank business came up for a possibility. When the idea came to me, I said, "This looks very, very interesting."
Okay.
The biggest question was whether ING would split the Europe business and the Asia business. We didn't want to acquire both. Our sense was that they wanted to sell both together. So the biggest concern was whether or not we were going to be forced into a bidding situation where we'd have to go for something that we really weren't very interested in. That's the Europe slice.
I'm sure that you've heard this so many times that there's a chance that you would have overpaid for this and so on. And the thing about a private banking business, just like an investment banking business, is that you're only as good as the people in the organization. In fact, you look at the asset size that you're acquiring. It's not even like a loan book. It's it can walk away from you in that sense. So, was that thought at all in your mind?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course. I mean, you have to consider that. What are the risks in making such an acquisition? There was the concept behind our belief that we could make it successful was, we reviewed the elements of what needed to be there to make it successful. Well, first, clearly the guys who were running the business needed a strong parent. ING had stumbled. They were, on life support from the government of the Netherlands.
Right.
So they needed another strong parent. So they were looking for somebody who was strong. Secondly, the guys who were running the business were very keen to continue running the business. Now, you have to understand the background of this. They had effectively, Bing de Guzman and his team had built this business pretty much single-handedly for 10 years. From 1999,
left mostly on their own.
Right, pretty much autonomous from the rest of ING. Not entirely autonomous, of course not, but they had been left to their own devices. So our conclusion was that if we continued, we give them a strong parent bank, we give them the autonomy to continue to run the business and grow it. We give them the investment dollars, and we give them additional product. This has got a good shot at winning. And with the branding of Bank of Singapore, which they're very pleased with.
They are very pleased?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, the issue is how far does the OCBC brand carry?
Yeah, and we'll come to that in a second. But were you already acquainted with Guzman before at which point did you become acquainted with him? And I'm sure that the chemistry between the two of you was part of the reason why that whole process would have been successful.
Yeah, to some extent. Bing was at the first meeting of the shortlisted bidders. We'd done a little bit of from public information, and a very skimpy information sheet had said, okay, we're willing to pay so much. So then we were one of the shortlisted bidders, and I first met Bing when he presented to us as one of the, I think it was 8 shortlisted bidders that started talking. And we were frankly very open and frank, and we said, Bing, we think we may have a brand issue in OCBC, but we've got a brand called Bank of Singapore. Are you interested? And at first I think they thought, this OCBC is not a serious bidder. But as we went down the path, and they realized that if they had been acquired by a major multinational, that they would have been completely absorbed, and the RMs would have been reporting to other leaders. If they came to OCBC, they had the opportunity to continue to run the business and get plenty of support,
right,
and keep reasonly autonomous.
But how are you going to take it in the next steps, basically? Because is there any synergies with the parent?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. First off, the deal only closed at the end of January, right? So we're still somewhat early days. But we're integrating, putting the OCBC team into the Bank of Singapore platform. They have a stronger platform of product capabilities than OCBC had. It's basically a margining capability and an ability to source with open architecture product from the best-in-class providers, and they move a lot of volume, so they also get good pricing. So the customers like them a lot. They have good advice. They have a product team that gives good advice as to what's going to make money. They're very, very focused on helping the customers make money, not how do we make money. Okay. It's how do the customer makes money, they bring you more business, and then we make money as a result. Add to that the fact that OCBC has a mortgage capability. Yes. And here's, ING was never able to book mortgages. And so the fact that we bring, mortgages to the table in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in China, many of their customers, and we've already closed deals in the United States, in London, and other places where their customers otherwise had to deal with other banks. Now they can deal with and keep their assets, including real estate assets, with Bank of Singapore / OCBC.
The ING deal, if it had come a little earlier, would it have still been possible? Is it a deal in the right time of the history of the bank, or it's immaterial in that sense that you were probably ready for?
Interesting question. I've not really thought about it. I suspect it would have been doable earlier.
So as an organization, you were ready?
Yeah, I think so. What's interesting is that, it's the crisis that threw up the opportunity. There are almost, I've not seen anybody offer an Asian private bank for sale other than this one. Contrast that with Europe. There are many private banks for sale. So it's very easy to buy in Europe because, many people see the shift in where the assets are, and they're coming to Singapore.
Did you fear that you were walking into a business that you had to learn again? Were there things about the private banking business that you give yourself space to be learning as you go on to the next steps?
I think one of the things that we learned early on in discussing the possibility of acquisitions is that one has to think about the temptation when you buy something is to say we'll change them, right? What's important is to understand how much you have to change yourself, right? So we've had to change some of our management processes in order to take on Bank of Singapore and make it work.
Do you think that something has to give in terms of people? I mean, you might go through another phase of people who may not be able to keep up with the change that you're putting in place as a result of the ING acquisition, and people on either side, whether it's on your bank side who can't accept.
Well, I think the biggest change is from the private bank team in OCBC, but what we've tried to convince them all is that they're going into a bigger platform, a stronger platform, a broader product offering, and the whole acquisition is about growth. This is about investing. This is not about cost cutting. Bank of Singapore is out recruiting as we speak from major private banks. So we've told all the employees, look, here's a chance for you to upgrade your skills. We're going to help you succeed. Nobody's looking at letting anybody go. Quite the contrary. We want to keep everybody on board and add to that. CBC.
At which point are you going to look at your franchise or the franchise that you have nurtured and say to yourself, I've done this?
Is there any job that's ever finished? When I ask employees to change jobs, the same story always comes out. If they're good people, they've got a lot on the boil. They say, I want to finish this first. Of course, if they're good people, they finish those, they've already got something else going. So there's no end to management. As we expand product-wise into different customer segments, there's always geography. So we're building China and other markets.
Do you ever fear that there might come a point where you might become, or rather OCBC might become, an acquisition target in itself, given that it is attractive and increasingly attractive as it is?
Well, I think OCBC has been an acquisition target for some time, obviously the more successful we are, the more likely it is to be an acquisition target. I'm fundamentally of the belief that if we can learn to acquire and integrate with experience over time, that we're more likely to be the acquirer than the acquiree.
David, thank you so much for spending time with
pleasure.
us tonight. And all the very best in building
Thank you.
your franchise.